I'm here with George Meressa. He is the founder of Clear Ads, Amazon legend, has been in the space for 15 years plus. Interesting story, incredibly interesting story. I actually listened to a couple of the podcasts before you come in, kind of to find out more about you. From what I know, Clear Ads is a full service Amazon agency. You guys do ads from A to Z on Amazon, DSP, and the full shebang, and full listing creation and the design. But I'll let you introduce yourself better.
No, that was perfect. I don't think there's anything else I can add.
Excellent, George. I really wanted to get you on. I've seen you in the space. I've seen you on LinkedIn recently. I think you're posting something like 7, 8 times a day, which I love the consistency. I'm seeing your posts pretty much every second page is you, and I like seeing that. The reason I wanted to get you on the call is I think you're one of the people who has been on Amazon for a much longer time, because most service providers have been around for 3 years, 4 years. They don't really know a world where e-commerce wasn't as popular as now or before the pandemic, and you've been in the space probably when FBA was kind of getting started. So it's very good to kind of get you to speak on that. The first thing I want to really ask you is, what have you seen change in the last 15 years? Because there's so many things, but what's the major shifts you've seen?
A few big shifts. I think one big shift is just how much more sophisticated Amazon Ads is. So before, there wasn't much to it. It's a very basic platform. It was very easy to run campaigns and get things going. Actually, a lot of really sophisticated brands never used to outsource PPC at the time because they could just manage in-house. It's gone to a stage now where it's far more complex. There's way more layers. It looks like there's updates coming out every other day. Because of that, I think it's just a lot more complicated. So that's one end. On the other side, in terms of just Amazon in general, as an ecosystem, it's much more of a serious platform now. I mean, years ago, we used to have people really successful by accident, right? They just stumbled across something and they did well. They have no business head on them and they would just like still do well and run out of stock every other day. Now, you're seeing a much higher level of sophistication from the type of brands that have survived. There's so many more layers now that have to be factored in. You have to be forecasting more in terms of inventory. You need to understand your bottom line and really like hone in on kind of how much profit you're making. I mean, a lot of the brands are closing their books once a month now, just to get a real idea of how they're actually doing rather than what's being said on the dashboard. So that's kind of the two biggest shifts we've seen. Also, another big shift actually is bigger brands have taken Amazon Marketplace as a serious platform now than before. So I think now, I mean, I don't know about you, but when we were managing accounts in the past, brands would just have some intern or that cousin that they hire to just look after Amazon. And now there's like way more talent in the space. They're taking it more seriously, and more brands. You know, you're seeing brands 5 million, 10 million a year who have a team in house now. That's how serious they're taking it as a platform. So.
I agree 100%. I haven't been around for as long as you, but the last 5 years, I mean, last 5, 6 years, before the pandemic and after the pandemic, Amazon wasn't really considered a player for big brands. Yes, it's true. A lot of big brands are still not on it, but you still see the biggest brands on it and actually have a big presence there. And as you said, the in-house teams and agencies in general, the level of agencies now compared to before. I mean, 5 years ago, you could run auto ads and just crush everything. Incredible ACoS, incredible ROAS. Manual ads was almost not even a thing 5 years ago. Like nobody, you would use it, but it wasn't even a thing. Amazon advertising wasn't even really a thing 5, 6 years compared to now, right? Because before 6 years ago, 5 years ago, organic was such a big part. There were so many brands who would just crush organically. And now to see that, it does happen, but it's such a rare thing compared to now everyone is running ads. Everyone is getting better at ads. I think the marketplace is really more sophisticated, similar to Google PPC as well in the early years. I mean, you've worked at the Google PPC agency from what I remember years back.
Yeah.
Second, like when did you started the agency? What, 15 years ago? Clear Ads.
Yeah, so in January it'll be 15 years, so very close to 15 years now.
And what is the size of the agency now? Like, how many people are working there, clients, and like, what is the size of the agency now?
So we have about 11 people on the team. We've got about 6 or 7 assistants as well across different places around the world, working with about 50 brands.
Wow, perfect. And is that US, UK, Europe, or
mostly US? So it's about 70-80% US, and then then the UK, and then a small number in Germany, and then a lot of those brands they go across different marketplaces. So
that's an interesting point because you're located in the UK, right? You're in London, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah. Emily
It's
Payne.
interesting because you work with a lot of US clients. I think the market is so much bigger there as well. So maybe that's one of the reasons as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier. I mean, it's a completely different culture in the US to the UK. So when we first got started, we picked up a number of brands in the UK, but those that were doing really well had hundreds of SKUs, sometimes thousands. I mean, there was one that had a few million SKUs, just to get the kind of like get good success. And then when we started dabbling with US accounts, I mean, there were brands doing 7, 8 figures with 2 or 3 ASINs. So at that point, we went right. Okay, there's just the sheer size and opportunity of that marketplace compared to what we had here. So we really doubled down in the US and really spent a lot of that time building relationships and a presence out there, more so than we did here in the UK.
Yeah, I think yeah, US is definitely the biggest market. A lot of opportunity in the UK. I think in the UK, it's a different market, of course. It's even the ad platform. In the UK is not as developed in the US. Like everything new that comes in, US is the first market to come in. So that's definitely a thing.
And that's a huge benefit, right? Because we've got a good foothold in the US, we can see all the beta programs that are out in US accounts, and then able to feed that back to the brands we work with in the UK. So I know that's been quite well received.
Yeah. How did your role kind of change in the clear ads? Because imagine when you started, you're kind of doing everything. You were doing the
Yeah.
client acquisition, you were doing the ads, you were doing everything else. How is it now, years after that?
I mean, there's had to be a big shift. So before I was involved in the day to day, I'm now not. So I'm looking at 1 or 2 accounts. I'm managing one account myself with a team member, but I'm really trying hard to only take on things that I can instantly drop and not have a reliance on me. And that's a really big question. And that's a question that, I've been dabbling with for like a few years. And I think with any company, whether it's e-commerce or not,
Yeah,
is always asking yourself, how can you solve the right problem the right way to help you grow your brand?
yeah,
So there's a thing called a theory of constraints. So every business has this where they hit this block, and I
yeah,
think for me and for where we're at now is traffic. So it's how can we get more exposure? How can we get more people aware of us being around? So
yeah,
that's kind of where my focus is, and that's what I've been pushing. So and that's kind of where a lot of my time goes to. And then there's always, I mean, there's that, but then I've also been challenged over the years to say that the best CEOs, the best entrepreneurs, they can spend a lot of time on a top level macro
yeah.
level in their business, and then be able to zoom in to the day to day nitty gritty
Hmm.
account management stuff, and then kind of come right back out again, and being able to go zooming in and zooming out at a quick rate. So that's something I'm doing, and I'm trying to get better at zooming in. But I'm always more zoomed out, looking at what's next, what's happening, where are the shifts, what's changing in the space.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because I think for agencies or services in general, there's always really two constraints. It's either your service is not great and you're churning a lot of clients, which is always an issue, or you're not having the client acquisition, the pipeline full enough. I think it's always that fight. It's either too full or it's not full enough. That's what I've experienced.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate. They think they're known, but actually, there's so many other brands that just don't know
Yeah,
about you, and that they don't know you exist. So, I mean, we were really heavy for a few years in the US, going to every event, sponsored as many events as possible, and I thought kind of we made a good reputation for ourselves. But there's still loads of people who've never heard of us, don't know who we are. So that's a big. It's been a huge unlock for me over the last 2 months, like just how little people know about you.
that's motivating, right? You being in the space for so long and still the industry being so big. Because what I think most people don't realize, the Amazon space and the e-commerce space is growing all the time.
Yeah.
So the people, because yeah, it's true, brands go out of business, but a lot there's everyday new brands getting onto Amazon, starting up. So the industry is getting bigger and bigger every day. And if you actually look, and this is a conversation I had with a friend because he was saying, oh, there's a lot of Amazon agency. If you actually look at the world and the sellers, there's not that many agencies compared to how many e-commerce sellers are. I think there are under 1,000 agencies in the world, Amazon ones, and most of them are small ones.
I could be a good example for you because I have my feet on the ground and I go to a lot of events, and I am seeing a lot more contractors now.
Yeah.
So I think from the agency point of view, the barrier to enter is so low.
Hmm.
So what's happening a lot, and I'm seeing quite often, is people have some experience managing 1 or 2 accounts. They pick up the skill set,
Yeah.
and then they go and start up their own thing.
Yeah.
And that's been a big thing this year, especially. I mean, I've met I've been bumping into so many brand new contractors and consultants over the last 1 or 2 years. So yeah, that's definitely there's definitely more, but then you can't underestimate there's still loads of brands. I mean, there's way more brands than there are agencies. But what the really encouraging thing is now, compared to before, we had to teach everyone from scratch how
Mhm.
to use Amazon ads. So now there's such a good pool of talent out there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, things have changed significantly. I think that's happened for e-commerce in general, for Meta
Yeah.
ads, for Google PPC, even for TikTok Shop. Now people are a lot more clued in, and that's brand owners as well. Brand owners now understand more, right? Much, and as you said, they're taking Amazon a lot more serious than they used to.
Yeah.
Where do you see first your agency going the next couple of years, and second the industry of Amazon going the next couple of years?
Oh, it's a really big question, and it's been one that's been on my mind actually. I think my concern at the moment is the way people engage online is changing. So just consumer behavior is changing, and that's probably the biggest shift I've seen over the last 15 years. I'm really watching that space. I mean, there's a lot more people having conversations to get to the product that they want compared to making a search online. And I just don't know what that looks like right now. I mean, the search will be around still, and it's a powerful, beautiful thing to be in. But how people engage is completely shifting. Wherever they go, we want to be there. So I'm not sure if you've seen, but a developer found an Android app
A way to
code
show, yeah,
within ChatGPT,
yes.
which shows that actually they are going to introduce the ad console fairly soon.
It's sorry to interrupt you, but it only makes sense. I think it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. I think the danger for most brands is to over optimize for things that are not happening yet, because the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing.
Yeah, there's that, but so that's one thing. I think so that's been huge. I think a big shift that we made over the last 2 years is we used to be just an ad agency, and now the listings have become such a big part of the performance of the ads. So we've gone full service, and the reason we've done that is because if you optimize the image, the title, the description, and see the click through rate go up by 20-30%, and the same for the conversion rate, it just has a snowball effect across all of the ads. So that's been a huge shift for us. Another big shift as well is the context is becoming more important. So, like Amazon understanding what your product does and who it's trying to engage with is more important now. So that's interesting. I think there's also going to be way more sophistication with the platform
Yeah.
over the next year or two. And I think what's going to happen is the agencies out there that do the grunt work and are making campaigns and optimizing bids and doing all of that stuff, which we did years ago, they're going to be completely eliminated because I think in the next year, the new ad manager and everything like that's going to come in and completely disrupt that. So that's going to take that away. I think from an agency, I mean, the next step that I can see right now where we are going and we have been going to is taking more of a strategic stance on accounts that we work with
Yeah.
and directing them in that sense compared to really focusing on the day to day. And that's been well received from a lot of the brands because they might have one or two people who can do the day to day, but actually they need direction more than anything.
I agree. I think strategical work and knowing where the market goes and how customers actually behave and buy things is going to be, it's already super important, right? Big agencies already doing that, smart agency already doing that. The
Mm.
bid works and that, you see, that's the tricky part with the actual technical part of Amazon. So you can know strategy, you can understand, but if you don't get the bid right and you don't know how to optimize it, you're not going to do well, because those are so important as well. So that's kind of the tricky stuff. And I know a lot of AI softwares have tried to fix. And I've tried most of the AI, the softwares for PPC. Most of them are not most of them. Everything I've tried is a disaster because they're not sophisticated enough for them to understand when they should increase a bit, decrease a bit, what bit is like the keywords. Okay, fair enough. You might find keywords, but every client we've worked with that has worked with software, it's such an easy way to improve results for him. So I think because yes, true, Amazon talent is getting better, but still most people that have some knowledge of Amazon is bad because it's very difficult to understand how Amazon works if you haven't worked with X amount of accounts, if you haven't sold your own brand. Meta ads, okay, maybe it's more mainstream, but Amazon advertising and how a listing works and how those two are connected and SEO and so on and so forth, there's very little out there that's actually real. That even YouTube, a lot of the videos on YouTube are not great advice when you're managing a certain level of account and a good amount of accounts.
Yeah, I think in terms of the people out there, There is a lot, but I think there's a few people that stand out, and the ones that stand out are the ones that can just go a bit deeper.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's missing. So, I mean, a lot of the people I speak to, they get stuck with, "I've done all I can.
Yeah.
This is completely optimized." But then there's the others who are the ones to watch out for, and the ones I'm always looking for are the ones that are never satisfied, and they're always looking, and they're always testing, and they're always trying to understand, and they're quick to pick up on any shifts in the market within the account that they could take advantage of, kind of control before it gets out of control. So they're the two differences. So yeah, it's very easy. You manage one account. If a lot of brands, I know they were fortunate to manage an account that had a great product. They created a campaign and it crushed it, and they went, "Wow, if I
This
could
is
do that
easy.
on this campaign, I can do this on any campaign." And they don't understand the depth. Hold on one sec. It comes down to the product. Well, what's the market like? How many others are there in there? Is their offering going to match up to what's out there? Can they even, should they spend on ads more? Like, what are the big areas they should work on? What is their inventory levels like? Do they control it? Do they always run out of stock? Because if they do, what's the point? So, how many other products are they launching? There's so many other areas to look into, and that's the issue, right? Because you look at Amazon's dashboard, you
Yeah.
go, "Wow, this is easy." This is easy. Like the click on this is easy, and we can get that all going. But actually, going the extra level and going deeper. And I've seen a bunch of account managers boasting about how long they've been in the space, but it doesn't come with time. Because someone who looks at things at a surface level for 15 years is surface level,
Yeah.
whereas someone else who's come in for 1 year and really gone deep into a few accounts and had some fantastic accounts to work with companies that really understand Amazon, how it works, and are able to test and get success. That's someone could be in it for a year, 2 years, and be incredible. So
I
there's
agree.
there's those differences.
I agree. I think time is, yes, it's one variable, but it's also how many accounts you've worked with, to what level you've worked on those accounts. Because you can be 15 years, but as you said, be so surface level that you haven't really learned much. And I have encountered the same. The best people I've seen in service in general, not just Amazon, are the people who go deep and understand it at a different level. Being good at ads and not understanding what a good listing is and what a market fit and good reviews. And okay, 5 years ago wasn't as a big part, but now, as you said, listings is such a huge part because the listing is the creative and the offer. Like that's what we have on Amazon. On Amazon, yes, we have video ads, we have sponsored display, but they're still not a massive part of how people buy. You're
Mm.
gonna get sales, and I always even say to brand owners and to agencies, right now, sponsored video is probably a very underrated way to get a lot of sales because it's still underdeveloped. Not a lot of people are using it, but it's still such a small part of the general amount of sales and when they're coming from. Still, everything is really search. Still, yes, Rufus is getting more popular, but the amount of sales that are coming from Rufus are not as many yet. First of all, Amazon hasn't really revealed the Rufus sales data. How many people use it is very irrelevant because I don't remember which company, but a quite fairly known company on the Amazon space did a survey of like 2,000 people of how many people actually used Rufus. 70% of people didn't even know what Rufus was. It was like 11 or 12% used Rufus, but it wasn't confirmed how many people actually bought. So now, is that going to be a big part in the future? Not sure, maybe. But also, Amazon is already using these type of things, like even like frequently bought products that you usually like. That's kind of AI and algorithmic way of thinking. So there is already that level on Amazon. I think it's just going to get more sophisticated, and it's almost going to create profiles for your customer behavior, which they already are. Question for you as well. Have you ever thought, because you've been in the Amazon space, why Amazon only? Why did you specialize in Amazon only? Was it because you were that's where you were getting very good at, or just to make it easier from an operational standpoint? Because you have a Google PPC background as well.
Yeah, just going back to I was just really thinking about what you said a minute ago. I think before we get onto that,
Yeah,
what's really important is for any brand out there, there's a lot of changes. There's
yeah,
Rufus Sky, there's all these shiny things.
yeah,
I think that the thing you can't forget is just general business principles, right? And just trying to make sure you provide the end user, the customer, the very best product and the very best experience.
yeah,
Because the most successful brands we work with make that their primary focus, not chasing the shiny things, but actually how can we advance it? What niches right now is absolutely crushing that we could kind of tailor our product towards? Because when you get that right, then you will be picked up. And also, it's not one big thing that's going to make the ultimate changes. Fine, if you put sponsored product video ads in,
Yeah.
you're probably going to get a bit of a head start to most, but it's all the small little things. I mean, if you got sponsored product video ads going, but you've got really okay images and your offering is the same as 25 other people, you might get a stronger click through rate. But if someone sees someone else's product underneath and it's a better offer, then that's still the issue, right? But ultimately, if you have a winning product, you're going to see like everything else work. And another important layer is, just because you had a winning product 6 months ago, are you still standing out from the sea of other products out there? Like, does your product still hold value and is different enough for someone to pick yours to
Yeah.
theirs? So
That's
that's kind of the thing. And then to answer your second question, I mean, the big reason why we went to Amazon is because at the time the return was just out of this world. So we had a few brands we worked with from our webs like Google Ads to their website, and they went onto Amazon as well. And we got them onto Amazon, and they went from having a ROAS of 2.5 to a ROAS of 5 or 6.
yeah.
So it was like a no-brainer. Just pump your money there, like just throw it, like just put it all in there, and we just moved the money around. And then what we found out at the time is, because the platform was such an early stage, there wasn't much effort you had to put in compared to
Yeah.
Google. There were so many moving parts of Google Ads, whereas with Amazon it was pretty straightforward. And at that time as well, we were ranking like number one for Google Ads Agency UK, Google Ad Agency London, and we just completely scrapped it. We're like, right, let's just end Google Ads. We're going to go like 100% into Amazon, and it's been great for us. And we've been able to ride that wave over the years and see the platform mature over time and see it develop. And it's now, hands down, the most powerful platform for ads out there.
I mean, it's insane how much ads as a revenue for Amazon grew. Like it's I think the highest growing, the fastest growing revenue generator for Amazon, and that's straight profit because that's on their platform. There's no real cost to them, and I agree 100%. I think, in my experience, the best brands to work with and the best business owners to work with are people are brand owners who understand product development, manufacturing, market fit in their customer, not necessarily marketing, right? Because if someone understands what people want, their niche, their customer, if you're doing watches and you're a watchmaker, if you're doing furniture, and if you understand product extremely well and you have the best quality product, you're going to win so much more than anyone else because everyone else is trying to hack it marketing wise. But if you have an amazing product and you have some good marketing, I think then it's where you really fly. And that's, I think, the difference between big brands and small brands.
Exactly, and that's why, I mean, we're so fortunate when we've got a platform like Amazon, which is the most unbiased platform in the world, right? Because, like you mentioned, you could compete against some of the big household names. If you sell more products to a click ratio than those big names,
Yeah.
Amazon will happily show you more often in better positions and probably give you even cheaper bid prices.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
seen that.
100. Yeah.
Whereas if you go to a supermarket, you need to prove yourself compared to these big companies, right? They're not able to measure it as much as Amazon. I think that's the biggest key of Amazon. Amazon, there's no other company in the world that's able to measure and listen as well as Amazon. Amazon's listening to everything. They're listening every signal you send them, every 10 clicks that your product gets for a certain keyword, how many convert? How does that compare to everyone else? And that's what they're looking at. And because, if you get the higher rate, then they're going to be completely biased to you and go with you because you're making them more money. And that's how they're growing. So actually, that's the key thing here is send Amazon the right signals. And if we find brands where they're sending the right signals to Amazon, that's when you really get aggressive with ads, and that's where you can really take market share. And it's been a hard year for a lot of brands, but we're still seeing a ton of brands who got the product market fit sorted, and they're just eating market share from others.
I agree, and that's a great point. Amazon, I think it's very fair for me because Amazon all it really cares is the customer. They're very obsessed about that. I think that's one of their biggest success. They care about great reviews, conversion rate, sales velocity. They love that. And you're right. And even if anyone's at home and if you go to Amazon, right, and you look at the bestsellers, many times the number one bestsellers are not big brands, they're not super known brands. And that's very rare to see anywhere else. As you said, in the supermarkets, the Coca-Cola, the Fantas, those are the ones that are pushed and buying the most. Very rarely does a smaller independent product really break through. Where on Amazon, many times smaller and independent products do extremely well because they understand Amazon better. They understand the whole algorithm, images, ads. They understand that. Whereas bigger brands, many times they just have it as a platform and they don't really
Yeah.
concentrate on it. It's very rare to see because it's way more democratized, in my opinion. Amazon, as you said, you send the right signals, Amazon is going to reward you for that because customers want it clearly. Because if I always say this, good conversion rate solves almost everything on Amazon. The better conversion rate you have, the
Yeah.
better everything is going to be on Amazon, from sales to profit to everything. Very interesting. I appreciate that. It's very rare for me to speak with someone who's been in the space for such a long time. Because 15 years on Amazon, it's like 8 years on any other platform. Because Amazon really, it's a fairly new platform from a brand perspective, right? They've been around from '94, but really in the UK, I think it started coming in and being more popular 2015, 16, 17, where brands slowly started to get in. US probably was a lot earlier because when was FBA introduced in the UK? I think it was 2012, 13.
Yeah, it was quite early on. I think when we got in, I mean, not even FBA. I think we there wasn't manual campaigns. I mean, manual campaigns just got introduced, so it was like primarily automatic campaigns.
Which is crazy. So clear ads right now, Amazon only. What's the biggest difference you've seen between like very big brands and brands that are much smaller? What's the big difference you've seen?
I mean, smaller brands, you got to give them granted, man. They're more scrappy.
Yeah,
Like they've been way more scrappy. They're really, really looking into the day to day, understanding more about every part of their business compared to the bigger brands. I think the bigger brands can kind of leave a lot of areas really not optimized. So that's kind of the biggest difference we see. So, and we learn a lot from some of the scrappier brands. So I think size doesn't mean much, right? Because this, and another example is the big brands. They come in to the platform with their brand recognition, and they got like a spillover from other platforms and ads from other platforms. Whereas someone starting a launch from scratch and has been successful with that launch, they know about finding the right fit in the market. They know how to find opportunities. They can be more agile, and that's what we've seen.
that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Uh, I like your website, right? Well, your website is very different from websites I've seen. I like how you put your pricing in. I've seen very few agencies in the space to put pricing in, and that's very interesting. Um,
Yeah,
what?
I read the book on it, and I think what's really easy for people to do, and it's just within human nature, and I've seen this like across every part, like of LinkedIn
Yeah,
websites, is what is it your customer needs? And I actually had internal debates a few years back because I said, hey, I just want to put the pricing on because really, when a brand goes onto a website, they just want to know how much is it going to cost them.
yeah,
And I read that in a book, and they explain how like this is kind of one of the key pieces of information they want. And if you could give it to them, or at least explain to them how
yeah.
you got to that number, you're more likely to get that lead. And actually, it's just so you know, the pricing page is I think the third most visited page on the website
What's the number one? Is it case studies?
homepage.
Homepage, yeah, of course, homepage. And after that is case studies.
No, it's our Amazon ads page, and then it's pricing.
Okay, that's a perfect segue. Then, when before that, when you didn't have price, did you see any big difference between conversion with new clients when you put the prices on?
No, no. I mean, because the thing is, the way we've done the pricing on the website is we haven't said, hey, this is the fixed rate.
Yeah,
It's more, hey, this is what an average price is, and
yeah,
then it's going to depend on how
yeah,
much work is required in the account, how many ASINs you have, how involved we need to be, what it is they're looking for. Before all of that, we'd need to really find out if it's even going to be a good fit. So
yeah,
it's just more, let's give them the information they need, and then with that, they come better equipped. Because I know for myself personally, if I'm looking to buy something or I'm looking to book something that's going to cost quite a bit of money, I just want to gauge a benchmark idea of what that price range is going to look like. Because I have an idea in my head of what I am prepared to pay.
yeah.
So if that's given to me straight away, it just takes away the unknown.
Mhm,
And that could be the big difference between someone just clicking and making that inquiry and not. And I mean, the end goal is always in anything you do, whether it's Amazon, whether it's an agency, is how can you remove the friction? Like if you
mhm.
can cut out the friction, if that was the one thing that's going to make someone quite guarded about speaking to you because they don't want to pay an arm and a leg, but or they can't afford the prices that you charge, then it's a conversation you save yourself from.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you're kind of pre-qualifying them because if you're saying my price is starting from X and they're not even close to that X, it means that it's not really time for them to work. And I always said, fortunately, unfortunately, great service and great agents will never be cheap because they know their value. And this is what I always say to brands as well: of like internal teams, from what I've seen, is very difficult to build. First, especially Amazon internal teams, and even Meta's, but more Amazon specific, right? It's very difficult to do a great internal team because anyone that's great on Amazon ads either is consulting a couple of brands making great money, has an agency, or is doing his own brand. So it's very difficult to get that person unless you're willing to pay a lot of money. And second, which is most important, and it's very difficult, if you yourself as a brand owner don't understand ads, you don't know if the person you're getting is actually good because you won't understand how that works. So I think that's why it's very difficult. And I've seen very rarely internal teams. When I say internal teams, I'm saying listing creation, ads, SEO to do very well.
But actually, there's an extra layer to this. Do you mind if I add it? There's an extra layer.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, go ahead.
so the extra layer is there's a different level of talent coming out now, and this is from the Philippines, Pakistan, India. There's a lot of people now who have worked in brands that have been successful and they've successfully exited and they've left.
Mhm.
So there are assistants out there right now who can basically do everything, and they are phenomenal. And they are coming in at a much lower rate than account managers and consultants in the
Mhm.
West, but it's about finding them. So they are out there. And actually, I mean, another big shift that we've seen in the space since we started is the internet is faster
Yeah,
across just around the world,
that's
which has
correct.
brought everyone together, which has now meant incredibly intelligent people from every corner of the world now has a shot.
Good point. Yeah, yeah,
And that's only going to get it's only going to intensify as we know that there's now talks about satellite internet, right? So
yeah,
people in remote villages in different countries around the world are going to be able to access the internet speed that we have in the next few years, right?
yeah. Which is
so
great.
so our competition goes from maybe a few 100,000 to a few million.
Yeah,
So that's what's happening. So, and this is where I spend most of my time, right? There's huge disruptions
yeah.
in just the way the world works. And this is going to have just a colossal impact on the day to day.
And talent wise, you mentioned the talent. Where is most of your talent from? Are you kind of outsourcing it, and not outsourcing, but are you hiring it internationally, or how have you structured it?
I mean, the way we hire talent is different to most. So the approach we take is I'll explain to you how we came to this, but someone I really respect in the space said she joined a consultancy firm and to let her know if I ever need an ads manager. And I said to her, look, we're always looking for ad managers, but the kind of ad managers that we want are the ones that are like on top of their game, right? Because if you get one account manager that is on top of their game and can do a cracking job, it just has a knock-on effect on all the business, right? Every client you bring in, they're going to be happy, they're going to pay more, they're gonna recommend you to other people. So it has such a knock-on effect. So I mean, finding that right person is so golden. The kind of people that we want, and I said this to her, is the kind of people that if they were to leave the agency that they're at, it would hurt the agency a lot.
Yeah, good
So
point.
much so that that person might even take some clients with them without even intending to because the
Yeah,
clients really like them. So that's the kind of people we want. And I just flipped the question back at her and I said, look, who do you know in this space? Because she's been in the space for like almost a decade herself. That is incredible that you worked with and just a real standout. And she goes, oh, that's easy, George. So she listed me 5 people, right? And then I
yeah,
was like, I think I'm onto something here. So I found them all on LinkedIn and I messaged them all and I said, hey, this person that you respect told me you're one of the sharpest people she's ever worked with. Can I pick your brains for 15 minutes?
yeah,
So I know like every person jumped on the call and I spoke to them and I said, okay, so in your time in this space, who is the sharpest person you've ever worked with? And when you meet A players and sharp people, they know others.
Of
right?
course, because they
So
hang out
then
there.
they
Yeah.
recommended 3 or 4 people to me. So I've got this crazy Google sheet now of like incredible talent,
Yeah.
and it's just being passed to me. And every time I go to any conference, when people are trying to get new business,
Yeah.
I'm actually speaking to brand owners, agency owners, tool providers, and I'm just asking, who have you been in contact with that was just a phenomenal account manager? Tell me about them. And there's a whole bunch of them that I speak to on a regular basis now, and just just the value of information that they give, and we can give to each other,
It's insane. Yeah.
has been golden, and I think that's been the approach that's really worked for us. Because just to flip it on you, what we do is when we interview, we ask for references at the end, right? What
Yeah.
if we flip that and we had the references at the beginning, right? So
Sure.
someone comes to you completely vetted,
Yeah.
and the last bit you're really trying to do is see if it's a culture fit. Like, what is it they want? Can you
I
make
love
it
it.
match?
I'll probably take some inspiration from it, but I do like that because people that are sharp themselves, you respect their opinion a lot more if they say someone is very sharp. That comes at a much higher, in my opinion, it's much more valuable to say. I'm going to flip the
But,
question then on you.
but
When it comes to the space and the Amazon space and the agency space, who are like 4 or 5 people that you're seeing and you're like, okay, they're doing it the right way?
yeah, so before we go there, but I think another thing just to add to what you mentioned is they put their name on it, right? So if you ask someone who would you recommend, they're putting their reputation on the line, right? So if someone's got like a really high reputation, they're not just going to throw a name at you.
Yeah,
And this is
good
something
point.
that actually shocked me. I thought they might just suggest their friend because their friend needs a job, but they didn't do that. People didn't do that. They actually recommended really sharp people, or they might have said, okay, this person's incredibly intelligent, but they are not the best when it comes to social skills. Or
Yeah,
yeah, so I got that context from people. So that's another thing to know. In terms of the space, see, the thing is, in this space, there's a lot of people who talk a lot, and they're public and they're
yeah,
loud, but they're not necessarily the ones that are the most successful. So the kind of people that I know and I speak to are not in the public scene, right?
yeah,
So I'm always on the hunt to find the brand owners that don't need our help,
yeah.
that they're crushing it themselves, and they're just cracking on. And I probably know about a good 40 or 50 and 20 or 30 they're good friends now. But like with them, they have no intention to post on LinkedIn. They
Of
have
course.
no reason to attend the events. They literally have techniques that really crush for them. And what's really interesting about these guys, the techniques they use to absolutely crush it
Yeah,
on e-commerce isn't some fancy new hack.
of course.
It's just the basic business fundamentals, and they just are relentless. Really, really push in terms of attention to detail to kind of plow through to get things done.
That's a very good point, and I agree, especially when it comes to. And I also think, right? I mean, personal brand is becoming more and more important, but I also think personal brand depends on where. I do think that brands nowadays, like e-commerce, of course, e-commerce, you being very personal brandish can help and can hurt because the value of the business many times can go down if it's very important. That if you're a key man risk, right? Agencies and services, maybe it's a bit different, but also similar. I also think that nowadays, though, especially for the younger generations, the brands that I've seen doing very well in the last 20, 30 years, Gymshark, Prime, brands like this, are becoming very founder focused. Like there's a face to it. I think that helps a lot, right? You don't have to do that. There's plenty of brands that don't do that, but I think that helps a lot. But it's a very, very good take, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think it's what you touched on here is really, really important. I mean, the personal brand, we're seeing its significance more and more now, and I am really kicking myself because for a few years I've taken a step back and was hoping others in the agency would be more of the faces, but actually that's always going to come down to the founder.
Yeah,
And right? If you post something on your company page on LinkedIn, you're going to get way less
yeah, of course, yeah.
exposure and reach than your personal account. And people just really want to connect to other people. And I think in the world where now being intelligent is becoming a commodity, right?
Oh
Everyone
yeah,
has ChatGPT in their back pocket and Gemini, which is only getting smarter. So
great.
actually being human and being kind, empathy, like all those traits now are becoming the new gold, right? And I think you mentioned in one of your posts, your superpower is connecting with people, right? And making those relationships and deepen. I think that's going to see you go further in the next few years, because
Appreciate
I
it.
think that's where we're going to move, because that's the kind of things you can't teach, and that's the kind of things you can't learn,
Yeah.
unless you try really hard or you're willing to be coachable. And I don't know. So yeah. So I resonate with you on that, because that's probably one area.
Yeah, and I think really you're one of the few ones that has, because what I see in the space is there's, as you said, very people who are very loud, right? But credibility wise, they're not there yet. Like they might be okay, but when it comes to the accounts they've worked with, the revenue they're managed, they're not at that level yet. For example, someone like you that's been in the 15 years, you have a lot more credibility from a standpoint, you know what you're talking about. If I'm asking you something, you're saying it from experience and data. You're not saying it because you watched a YouTube video of someone saying it. And I think that's a big difference when it comes to. That's why I think someone like you, if you really push content, you'll do much better. Because if I listen to you as a brand and I implement this and it does very well for me, I'm like, okay, George is really onto something, so maybe I should listen more to him. So I think that's very, very important, and I think that's where you have a big advantage because you've been in the space for such a long time.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things I've learned as well is, especially for any younger audience members that are listening, is one thing that gets completely disregarded now is focus.
Oh yes,
And actually, where you put your time and attention is sacred, because everyone has the same amount of time in a day. And I'm just noticing it's so easy, and I'm a victim of this. It's so easy to try this new thing or attempt to this add on actually staying focused. And what you'll find, and I'm sure you find this too, but every year that you are in the industry, everything compounds, right? So the relationships compound. I mean, the 5 6 years ago when I spoke to those brands that were doing 10K a month and I just gave them that free advice, they're now 7-figure brands, and when they reach back out, they remember what you did for them, and they just sign up and they don't ask any questions, and it's just straightforward. So I think we're blessed. I'm blessed to have been in this space from the very beginning. I mean, not beginning, but like 10 15 years. And because of being in this space for so long, is given us that edge and that advantage. And I think what I've seen in this space is one or two dear friends and agency owners, they get bored and they stop. And actually, for me, my superpower isn't I'm the smartest, but I can do this for another 10 years. Like 10,
yes,
15, 20 years, 30 years. I could do this as the only thing I do in my life. 15 years, great. What would 30 years look like?
that's a great point, and I think
You know,
that's
and there's a lot of big. I mean, like one interesting statistic, I've recently found out is the average age of an entrepreneur in the US is actually 43.
yeah.
That's the average age. So there's a lot of hype and talk online about people becoming millionaires in their 20s and like early 20s and stuff, which I think, to be honest, if I was a millionaire in my 20s, early 20s, it wouldn't have been wise, right? I would have been stupid with what I had. I would have been reckless. I would have made some really bad life choices, because when you get that kind of money, you're opened up to more choices and more ways to mess
It can
up.
set you back more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't even know how. Sorry, I didn't even know how we got into this conversation, but I think focus is a really big one. Even with brands, it's just where do you put your time and effort? Where do you focus? And I'm now like, I deviated once or twice in the last few years, and now I'm right back into it. Like I'm not
Where did
doing
you
anything else.
deviate?
There's
Did you
enough here
deviate
to keep
to?
me stimulated.
Where did you deviate? Did you deviate to maybe real estate investment, or where did you deviate to?
That's a really good question. I mean, at one stage, I did a lot of stuff with crypto. For a while, investments was one, and then I tried to sell on Amazon,
Yeah.
and then I tried to do that at one point, but then it just was taken away from the main areas. So I've kind of now come back to just completely doing this.
And that's a good point with the boring part, because I think especially you that you've been in the space for some time, you get the point you start making some real good money. You have systemized a lot of it, so you're not required to be there as you were at the beginning. So probably at
Yeah.
one point you're like, I'm getting bored. What do I fulfill my time with? That's a very good point. And I think it happens more often than it's not. And you have great examples of people who are doing very well in the same space you are, but they're like, you know what, I'm bored. I'll do something else, and that probably set them back of where they could have been now.
Yeah, so that's one thing, and another thing is they're in the space and they're doing three other things, or four other things. And every time I see them, they're so busy. But like, it's you're doing three or four other things.
I do think singular focus especially nowadays, is a bigger advantage than ever because it's such a because there's so many distractions, and there's so many bad voices out there of you should do this, you should do that, like, and everyone looks serious, everyone looks legit, everyone looks like they know what they're saying because they're saying it in a certain way. And now with ChatGPT, everyone can write well. It becomes complicated. What as a final part, as we're closing in, what advice would you give to someone who's starting a brand right now and let's say has 50,000 as a budget? And what advice would you say at someone who's starting as an agency, for example? Those What advice would you give to those two people?
If there was just a drop of water that fell on a rock for years, that would change the shape of the rock. So if you're focusing on the same thing for years, you can shape things, you can move things, and if you're consistent with it, there's so much you can do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if like regardless of whether you're an agency owner or you're a brand, I think the biggest thing you can do is get beside someone who's a little bit ahead of you. So someone who's further ahead of you, because it's so easy to listen to people that are not even doing what you're doing, or they have no proof behind them.
Yeah.
Because what I find is as well is when you actually speak to those who are ahead of you, when they explain things, it's easier to understand. They really break it down, and they're talking from experience, and they can give you real guidance. And they also are able to make you think about things that didn't even come to mind. So it's not even about asking the right questions. It's about being in a position where they can answer questions that you were going to ask in the next few months or few years.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think the focus is really a big point because it has happened to me as well that sometimes you're like, okay, if you do this or if you do that, but then you're because I think what most people forget is like regardless of the industry you're in, right? In 2025, almost every industry is big enough. If you're the top 1%, really top 1%, you're one of the best. Either a Amazon agency, TikTok agency, home improvement agency, whatever that is, the rewards are very big from that. Because sometimes if you go logically by industry, like the biggest industry are insurance, finance, and banking, but that doesn't mean you would go in there and do extremely well because being the biggest are probably also the most competitive and most difficult to get in as well. So I think there's a lot of rewards emotionally, financially, if you stay in one space. And I think being top five in one space is much better than being top 100 in another space. The biggest eats the best, and the best agencies do much better. And I think sometimes when you're starting out, you're like it's difficult, but it's supposed to be difficult as well because every industry looks easier from the other side. Google PPC guys are saying Amazon is very easy. Amazon guys are saying Google PPC is easier. Shopify is saying, oh, Amazon. It's like everything is different. I think it's really about what you really focus on and what you choose to focus on and being persistent about it. I think that's a big, big part.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, excellent, George. Really appreciate you coming, George. Anything you want to plug in? Anything you want to mention? I know you're very active on LinkedIn. I definitely suggest for people to follow you on LinkedIn because you're posting a lot of interesting stuff that very few people are.
Yeah, I mean, if I've got an unusual last name, it's George Meressa. So if you want to keep updated with what's happening in the Amazon space or just e-commerce in general, feel free to give us a follow, and I'll be kind of shoving you with a lot of content, and I promise to make it as valuable as possible.
Appreciate it. Amazing. Thank you, George. Thank you for coming. I think a lot of people find this valuable. Really appreciate you taking the time.
No worries. Thank you so much for
Definitely.
having me.